to Thoroughbreds Declassified. Today we are finishing a very important conversation in the thoroughbred industry. That's right, we are discussing In the Breeding Shed with Thoroughbreds Declassified. I'm joined here today with my co-host and father, Ryan Campbell, as well as my husband, Justin Morris. And we've already covered a lot of really important information about the breeding industry. So if you have not, check out the latest episode and listen to that before you watch this one. It'll make a bit more sense. Or not. Do whatever you want. But yeah, Dad, how are you feeling about diving further back into this conversation?
I think this one's going to answer a lot of questions.
Yeah.
We proposed what some issues are. We're going to propose, a few more issues. But once we get into it, we're going to start talking about how we can fix this problem.
Yeah.
So, I still, like I said in the last video, I don't think the problem is actually declining foal crops. I think the declining foal crops is the result of the problems. So,
Cool. Let's dive right in.
last time we left off with the question, are breeders part of the problem? One of the questions to try to come up with that answer is the commercial breeding market good or bad for the industry? What do you think, Nick?
I think in theory, it's interesting because it gives owners another opportunity or breeders another opportunity to make money. I think as is practiced right now, I do believe it has more harmful effects on the industry rather than positive effects.
Yeah, I think it's one of those that, once again, the question is answered by yes, it is, and no, it's not. If done, if done in a proper way, it's great for the industry because breeders have a place to be able to make a profit on their foals. But I think what the market has turned to is we're completely focused on commercial. That's why first year stallions have such large books, because they know that the market is going to pay the big money to try to catch that first crop grade 1 winner or whatever. So in the state that it's in right now, I'd say it's probably more bad than good. Buyers are focused on those first, second year stallions or the upper tier. And then I think there's a portion of the breeders who all they care about is breeding to that first and second year stallion. It's not, hey, what is actually best for my mare? It's, I got to get something that first or second year stallion. So they push it without any other consideration.
Well, and I will say this, and we've benefited from this, so it's kind of being a little hypocritical in saying this, but the introduction of like Klarna and Afterpay and Affirm and all those things,
Yes.
especially now that you have Stallion farms who are very free with their payout of proceeds situation. And I get it from their end because they make their money either way. But you see a lot of breeders who otherwise probably wouldn't be taking as big of a swing as they do on these first year stallions. They are kind of getting themselves in a hole because if they don't sell for what they need to, then they're still on the hook for that.
Right. And, from our own experience, which is kind of hard to talk about, but, we bred a mare on a payout of proceeds to a $50,000 stud. And we, unfortunately, that baby was born 7 weeks too early and was not viable. But right around the same time that baby was foaled, that $50,000 stallion that we bred to the year before dropped to $15,000.
Yeah.
And typically, when you see that and you've got a baby on the ground that you owe a $50,000 stud fee on, the percentage chance to be able to recoup your money on what's now a $15,000 stud versus a $50,000 stallion is pretty hard. And it's, so you get into it using those payout of proceeds or full shares or whatever, because you know that if it was a regular life full standing nurse, you wouldn't be able to write the $50,000 check for it. But something happens, and all of a sudden the baby isn't worth that kind of money, and now you got to figure out a way to come up with money to pay the difference between what the baby sold for and what the stud fee was.
Mm-hmm.
So, is it is are those programs a way to help the smaller mid-sized breeder? Yes, but it also has to be done carefully.
Yeah.
Um, I like to think of not just, hey, we sold this baby, did this baby make money? It's we look at the entire crop that is sold that year, and if one baby may not break even, but another baby may make a decent amount. So if all of them put together cover all of the expenses for all of the babies, then we had a good year.
Yeah.
So, but if you're only breeding one or two mares a year and you're swinging for that fence, there's no guarantee that you're going to make that money back, and you're going to have to come up with that money. So,
No, unless we're real, there's rarely anything in the horse industry that goes to plan, anyways.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
know, the way I wish there was a way that the commercial, and it's really on the buyers at that point, because in any auction, whatever's brought through will only make what people are willing to buy for.
Yeah.
So if the breeders are kind of catering to what the buyers are looking for when they're breeding to those first year stallions or what. But you also have to think, if you are going to play in the commercial market, if you breed to a stallion that has a $50,000 stud fee and you sell it for 60, there's ten $10,000 there that you got to cover everything that happened.
Yeah.
But let's say you breed to a $15,000 stallion and you sell it for 60, you've got a lot more, what I'd say, meat on the bone to be able to recover from. So from a standpoint of the breeders, they have to do it. They have to not get motivated by the big sale
Mm.
and overextend themselves from what they can really actually afford. And if you're only breeding one mare, I would never recommend going that big swing, because there's a better chance that you're not going to break even than you are. So,
Yep.
are breeders setting themselves up for failure by breeding to unproven stallions? I'm going to say yes, but it is once again dictated by what the buyers want to buy. Um,
I think it depends. I mean, if you're breeding with the intention of having, you know, a sales horse that grows into a racehorse, like if you're considering that far out, I think if you stay in the like affordable range, you're not really setting yourself up as much for failure, especially when that horse has like a strong female family, or like, there's enough pieces to the puzzle there that you feel like really good about. I think when you get to the upper echelon of how much they're spending on these first year stallions, I think it kind of does set them up for failure, especially now that we're seeing so many first year sires from these same sires over and over and over. At this point, we've already got proven examples of a lot of these sire lines. So, does it make sense to go to a first year sire if, or would it make more sense to go to a proven version if you can afford it? That's also a big
Right.
portion of it.
I mean, one thing that um, I hope the breeders actually understand: just because you breed to a first year stallion doesn't mean that that baby is really going to be worth anything. It really does depend on the type of mare you're breeding to that first year stallion. So,
It also depends on the physical. You could have a bred amazing baby from a first year stallion, and if they don't have a good physical, you're not making money.
right. But if you have a foal out of a mare that has no catalog page,
Hmm.
um, if you express the desire to breed to a stallion, most likely you're going to get to breed to it if you're willing to pay the money. There are some stallions that they won't let that happen to. First year stallions, if you want to pay the money, you're probably going to be able to breed to it just to be able to get the numbers underneath them. But just
Yeah.
because you bred to that first year stallion, that's $50,000 doesn't mean you're going to get anywhere close to that money because the quality of the mare is not big enough to get a baby that brings $50,000 in the sales.
I also think it's important when you're looking at first year stallions, when you are planning on booking your marathon one, try and figure out how many they have on their books. I know they're not going to be like super, super forthcoming, but if you ask around, you can know the one. And I love this horse, so that's why I'm saying him because I do think he's going to throw runners. Golden Pal bred almost 300 or over 300 mares his first crop. You really think you're gonna make money on the Golden Pal? No, because there's 300 of them out there.
I was going to take it the opposite direction. So we kind of disagree on this.
Okay.
If if you if you know from the stallion farm approximately how many mares are booked, if okay, I'm going to use Charge It for example. Charge It stood his first year for 12,500,
Hmm.
but when he and the breeding season actually started, by knowing how many mares were booked to him, you knew that even though this horse has a $12,500 stud fee, he was already overly popular. You can see at the very end, I mean, he was second highest of first year stallions in number of mares covered. That means that he's already on everybody's watch list.
I think to an extent, yes, but there is a limit of it being way too much.
Well, yeah, and we talked about that of
Yeah.
of limits, but from a standpoint of, let's say there's another horse standing out there for 12,500, and you ask, hey, how many's booked to him, and they tell you 40, it's probably not going to be a commercial win
Mm-mm.
because the interest in breeding to him is not there.
Yeah.
Take a chance on a regional program or making it a racehorse or whatever, but if the breeders weren't overly interested in breeding to them, then the buyers are probably not going to be overly interested in paying
Yeah.
big. Now, that's not always the case, but it's a pretty good rule to follow. So, but I do think for the most part, I mean, and one thing they fall into is, if they're a breeding commercial, which typically first year, second year sire, first year, second year sire, they're taking the chance that their babies, their mares never produce a baby that's a quality runner.
Yeah.
And I talked to you about, there is a farm in Kentucky that I've been talking with, and they're like, you know, we have a mare who's had, will have her first baby this year, and they're like, hey, You can breed her to first year stallion in 2026, but 2027 you may be wanting to breed her to a proven stallion just so that she has the opportunity of producing a racehorse in case the stallions that you bred to are failures, so to speak.
Yeah.
It's a very bad term, but we'll use it. And we've even purchased a mare that she was just constantly bred to first year stallion, second year stallion, and she hasn't produced much. But if you look at the stallions that she was bred to, they didn't last but maybe 4 or 5 years at stud period.
Yeah.
You can't get to them. You know,
What do you think, Jay?
I think you have to, it's a mixed bag. I think if you're going at it from a sales perspective, as long as you're not breeding just one, like you said, I think it's probably worth the swing.
Yeah.
If you're going from a racing perspective, I would definitely probably either go proven or use y'all's logic of son of or something along those lines. But I think it's just different on the approach that you take.
I mean, if a breeder is breeding a horse to race, they're probably not anywhere in the discussions of a first or second year stallion, usually, unless
Yeah.
they just emotionally have an attachment to a specific racehorse or whatever, and that's who they want to breed to. But I would say the majority of your first and second year stallions, their babies are going to be going through the sale at some point in time.
Mhm.
And this is a big question. We had a slide on this in the last episode. But is the breeder's first priority to produce a racehorse, or is it to produce a sales horse? If you're selling your baby, I don't necessarily agree that your first. I don't. If you're selling your full yearling 2-year old, I don't think either one of these can be your first priority. I think they are equally as important.
Yeah.
That you you breed to be able to sell for the best price, but also breed to sell or to produce the best racehorse. I think there's a fine line you got to walk there. And if your blinkers are on and all you're focusing on is I got to get the best sales baby, I got to breed to who's going to bring me the most money, I I think the breeders are setting themselves up for failure at that.
Yeah, I agree on that.
Because you're ruining your mare too. Because what if, I mean, you take a look at our stats from the last episode, not a whole lot of proven stallions stay around when you compare the number of first and second year stallions that come in. You know, they don't all stay, and the vast majority of them don't stay. So I think you've got to balance that to breed the best racehorse you can that will get the best sale price that you can at the same time. But I don't believe a lot of breeders are thinking that way. I think a lot of them focus on. I mean, and we know of some that their goal is, hey, let's get the biggest sales numbers. Let's get the biggest sales numbers. And it's a hard balance to do. Are the
I think
breeders?
this is
Well, I'm not talking in general. I'm talking in specific breeders, broodmare bands. So it's somebody has 20 mares. Are the top mares in that broodmare band going to the first second year sires, the commercial sires, or are they taking their best mares and breeding them to proven horses?
I think it's a mixed bag because I think there are some who are going to send them to that first year sire. Especially when you introduce like people who have breeding shares in a stallion, like of course they're going to send their nice mares to them. But I do think once you get to a certain level with these stallions, they're proven and they're commercial. Now, of course, there's going to be outliers in it, but I don't know if they're going to certain stallions specifically for commercial or if they're going there for a cross because there comes a level that it's kind of the same. So like twirling candy, you're paying a big stud fee, but he also throws you hell of a racehorse.
But let's if you're taking your best mares and you're breeding them the first year stallions, I hope you have a really good judge of which stallions are going to be the successful
Mm-hmm.
top tier stallions because you're going to have so many years of production with those first year stallions that may not even throw you a horse that can break its maiden.
Yeah.
So the opinion I would have would be, I mean, obviously you have your broodmare band, you want the best possible from top to bottom, but there's always going to be a ranking. This is my best, this is my worst. Just because it has the label worst doesn't mean it's a bad broodmare.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people's I'd like to have their ones that they're moving on because they may be better than what we have. But I think if you're going to play that big swing commercial game, which is heavily driven by unproven stallions, you've got to switch that mare, those top level, your best mares between unproven and proven back and forth to not hurt yourself in the future because you've got 5 years of production and the mare couldn't throw a baby, that could break its maiden because you bred to the wrong stallion.
Well, and I think that there's kind of a twofold thing because you're gonna ruin production long term in a horse, but from their perspective, at least from what I've learned from talking to multiple people, that first year stallion is typically gonna get a high sales rate. If they're accepted well, your mare is going to have a baby that sold for a bunch of money, and that helps her commercial value before those horses get to the track. Of course, that changes the moment they actually get to the track because if you have a turd, you have a turd. But I can see why breeders would do it because it looks really. I mean, we have a mare. Now, granted, the horse that I'm gonna reference cannot run, but she is the mare has a sister who is a daughter of Justify. Horse sold for $450,000 as a 2-year-old in training. That looks really freaking good on a mare's production. And then you kind of have to take into note that there's more of a chance that that baby's not going to win.
Right.
So there's
Has,
something to keep in mind on that.
there's another one that was a Mendelssohn that sold for 180, and he's
Yeah.
yet to break his maiden.
Yeah.
He likes finishing second, third. So
He's a bridesmaid.
yeah, and what's crazy is he's never won a race, but he's got decent earnings because he's finished second, third quite a bit.
Yeah.
So I think the breeders really have to be careful.
Yeah.
And I had never had I'd never had anybody give that advice, especially a top level farm, saying, "Hey, there are so many mares out there that could have been good mares that were ruined because all they were ever bred to was first year stallions, and they just happened to pick the wrong ones and never threw a racehorse." So,
Yeah. Which
which
we
is
kind of
what we
have
just
already been talking about this.
yeah, You know,
It's an interesting pipeline because, yes, they do mark these mares as unproven, but as a regional breeder, we kind of benefit off of it because the quicker they move horses out of their program, that means the quicker they get into regional markets. And then that gives us more opportunities to breed that mare. So it's kind of one of those that like if you fix that, it may have negative implications elsewhere.
right? But we're trying to keep, these are kind of problems for a breeder that could cause that. If you do this enough, it could keep you from being in the business. And just
Yeah.
because a mare moves to a regional program, you've got another breeder who has lost their shirt trying to do that. Um,
But I also think it's kind of on the breeder, though. Like, if it's really that important to them, don't mark the horse as a failure.
right. Well, here's the thing. It's not the breeder that's marking them as a failure. It's the commercial buyer because of the production that they see on the catalog page. And then there's the other thing. They start hitting 12, 13 years old. People, there are some that have already produced and, you know,
Well,
buyers.
I mean, I think, yes, the commercial market does have some say in marking the horse a failure or not. But at the end of the day, the breeder's the one that has the responsibility
Right. But
to
the,
keep those horses in the program. And if you are seeing that mare is not producing with first year stallions, go to a proven stallion. I think where it kind of gets messy is we have such an immediacy problem in general, but like
right,
even in horses, if their second or third baby like isn't
they move them on.
good, they're done.
Yeah.
And so it kind of brings this larger issue of okay, well, yes, the commercial market is saying one thing, but the breeder's the one who makes the decisions.
Right.
So
And that's, I think that's part of there are going to be mares that aren't your high dollar, even under 50,000 to or 20,000 to $50,000 producer, but that doesn't mean that if you breed her to race, that baby's not going to go out there and you know make good money on the track.
one of my favorite examples of this is Mockmar Hall bought the dam of Frosted for $6,000
Yeah,
before she produced Frosted.
they had a
That mare,
they had a
they
big
have,
with buying unbridled song mares, if I remember
mhm,
correctly.
yeah, they love Unbridled Song over there.
And the thing with a breeder, if you like a particular line of mare, which I think we kind of have the same thing, ironically, but it's not on
Unintentionally
purpose.
on some of it.
But if you figured out the kind of the magic sauce with that sire line when you're breeding the mares, you know it's really hard to do. But the ones that finally figure it out, Mockmer Hall was extremely successful
Yeah.
with their unbridled song mares because they figured it out. And there were some that didn't make it, even trying their what they figured out. But for the most part, they've produced incredible horses out of the unbridled song line.
All right, Joe, I want you to take this one.
I think it's depending on what focus that you take in. If you're looking at it from a sales perspective, then yes, I do. If you're thinking it from a racing perspective, I think there's a whole lot more to it than just last year's sales. Unless you're just going in with you want it to be racing and sales as well. But I think if you're taking a racing approach, then no, I don't think they should focus on that. If you're taking a sales, that should be your most logical decision.
I think it gets tough when you I guess it depends where in the life cycle the stallion is. Because if you have a horse that is the first 3 years, those sales numbers, regardless, are going to be inflated no matter what. That's just one of those that like you can't really trust those for like long term goal. But I think if you have like a proven horse, I do think it's something, once they hit like a consistent, I guess, what am I trying to say? A consistent
They have
time.
they have a decent number of foals out there that have ran to give you a
Yep.
statistical summary that is valid.
Yeah.
And I also think with this one, it's also, I mean, if you're looking at that, you almost have to look at it from either proven or ones that have been standing for a while. Because just because the
Well,
Stallions' last year numbers are hot doesn't mean you're going to get money from it a year from now when it's born. So, like, it's, you're factored in 2 years of timeline when you're comparing it to last year's numbers.
so I'm probably a lot more harsh on this because I'm a numbers guy and hedging your bets guy. I look at not only if I see a horse that throws a couple grade one winners and they're won the big races, but their winners from starter percentage is extremely low, probably not going to breed a mare to that stallion, even though they had a really popular horse that everybody, you know, the chances of your baby winning a stakes race are very, very small. So to be successful as a breeder, you need to hedge your bet to a stallion that has a higher winners from starters percentage.
I'm gonna throw a name out there. It's not an active stallion, but I feel like I'm gonna get some heat saying this. You know who is one of the most inconsistent stallions that to this day is heralded as one of the most gone too soon stallions? Arrowgate. Arrowgate had a horrific winners from starters percentage. Awful. Like it was in the 40s.
Right,
But when you had one hit, you had one hit. And
right.
so it's one of those that, when you look at a stallion like that, you have to accept the fact that you're probably not going to get a winner from that horse.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it. There's a really, really popular stallion out there that he is under 45% winners from starters, yet he's still breeding well over 100 mares.
Yep.
I mean, well over 100 mares.
Yeah.
To me, that's a no go.
Hmm.
Now, does it mean that he won't right the ship? You know, I mean, he doesn't have the
He
biggest
is
number.
one that started with a five, like it was a $15,000 stud fee, and then he went all the way down to five at one point.
Well, not the one I was talking about, but
Yeah, the one you're talking about was standing at for $5,000 until his 2-year-old hit.
okay.
Yeah.
Um, but then you've got somebody like Not This Time who
Yep.
started out low, and just his number of graded stakes horses from starters
Hmm.
is the highest this year. His
Well, would
number,
you say that the market has a habit of overcorrecting when they have a horse that starts out a lower fee that ends up producing some big horses? It's almost kind of dramatic how quickly they will say, "Oh, we're gonna jack this horse's fee up
Mm-hmm.
right?
by 300%."
Um, it has happened in cases, but then
Yeah.
there are cases where stallions, I can think of three of them right now, two of them at one farm, one at another,
Yep.
that they deserve every bit of their drastic increases that they got this, for the 2026 season. And their winners from starters percentage is phenomenal.
I'm gonna throw one name out there because this is a good thing that I think he absolutely deserves every bit of the hike he got.
Look home.
Vekoma. 1000%. Oh my God! If I had
I
100
will flat
grand, I
out
would give
say,
it to him right now.
yeah, if we're gonna throw out names, my three that I think absolutely deserve the large hikes that they got: Vacoma, Omaha Beach, and not this
Yeah.
time. You know, and not this time. His, he started really low,
Mm-hmm.
which means he wasn't getting the highest quality mares, and did what he did. Um, but if you look at his winners from starters percentage, his graded stakes winners from starters percentage, they outshine every horse, every
Mm-hmm.
stallion out there that's running, that's standing this year.
Yeah.
And Vacoma, he is definitely, and Omaha Beach have definitely outperformed the norm.
Yep.
So definitely three stallions that you would have loved to have bred to their first year. But if you also look, there is a stallion out there that's getting the exact opposite. Their stud piece tumbling, and that's Veneruso.
Yep.
But if you look at his winners from starters, he's got a really good percentage. But he's not gonna. It looks like the commercial. He's going to be a
He's
breed
just
to
not
race.
really producing stallion compared to, and I think it also hurts him where he stands because when you stand at these stallion farms that have 26 stallions, half of them are first year stallions, the other half are proven stallions. You really got to be something to stand out.
Yeah,
Because I feel like if he would go to a stallion farm with a smaller roster, it'd be a little bit of a different story.
right. I think I think when definitely the ones that are wanting to look at breeding to a proven stallion. Yes, he doesn't have the number of graded stakes winners that others do, but he has a solid winners from starters percentage, and that's
Yeah.
what's going to help. You know, like the other farm was saying, breed to unproven, breed to proven. If you can afford to spend 30,000 on an unproven horse, I mean, even if you're willing to, I mean, I think Russo's at 5 or 7,500 this year.
Mm-hmm.
It's a solid investment with doing that.
Well, the one that was criminally underrated, and I know he just moved this late in his career, and it broke my heart that they moved
I know
him.
exactly who you're
But
going to talk to.
Cross Traffic, talk about one of the best value horses out there.
Yeah,
He just throws you runners, and that also delves into another conversation about how quickly they move these stallions on. For a horse like that, being able to get to him for $7,500, insane.
I'm gonna
Or
give
the factor.
hadn't really thought of. I mean, because we've talked about midshipman and frosted. We think those are definitely good value sires for breeding to race to get your racehorse. I'm gonna throw one
Mhm.
out that I don't think anybody's ever heard me talk about, and that's Dialed In. He's a home run every day.
Yeah.
He
I
stands.
was I was thinking of Upstart personally.
Yeah, but Upstart's moved that price range
Mhm.
up. You
Yeah.
know, Dialed In is somewhere between 10 and 15, I think, this year.
Mhm.
That's a
Mhm.
solid move. And he has a little bit of commercial value where if you did run it through the sale and you have a good physical, you have a good catalog page behind the baby, you can make some money on it. It's, probably not going to get you that six figure baby, but the starting price is lower. Yeah.
Since we're talking about them, we cannot talk about Dialed In without having one reference to the Jimmy Fallon Kentucky Derby rap. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Uncle Mo scratched.
I'm dialed in, favorite to win, better pick me if you're gambling, and then something about Uncle Mo scratching.
That is absolutely crazy because I actually never thought of that. Dowden and Uncle Mo were the same age.
They are, yeah.
So Dowden's getting to be an old mare or old man.
Yeah. Also, just throwing out there, I know he's on the little bit higher side. I think he's at 35 now, but Blame is also one.
Blame's only at 25.
He's at 25 now.
Yeah,
He's one that you can get to. I mean, especially you gotta hope that you get a
get a
filly.
filly. Yeah, and if you get a filly, you don't want to sell it. You want to run it, hope it makes money, keep it as a brood mare.
Yep.
To be honest with you, um, but yeah, he's solid. I mean,
He's full of girlies.
um, trying to think of some other older proven. He's standing for a private fee this year, and a whole lot of people don't talk about him. But Temple City is as solid as they come.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to breed to him and you're going to race it because you're probably not going to, you know, make enough money to really break too much even at the sales. But Temple City was just flat solid. And, you know, he's getting older. There's going to be a time where he's going to be pensioned. Um, you know, so, I mean, there are, Jimmy Creed's another one.
Yep.
As solid as they come.
Matoli.
So, oh, yeah, let's talk about Matoli. I'm going down the rabbit hole. What a value sire standing for 15,000. He's thrown a Breeders' Cup winner. He's stayed for
Izzy.
huh?
Izzy.
He stayed. I believe he stayed in the top 5 of his sire crop. You know, in what? What is this? His 4th year, 3rd year?
Yeah.
He's still in the top 5, and you've seen, you know, other horses from that same group that have seen their stud be skyrocket. I think Maximus Mischief was in that crop.
Mm-hmm.
Omaha Beach or Vacoma, one of those two were in that crop.
I think both.
But Matoli just gives you a solid horse.
Yeah.
Absolute solid horse.
So now for our next session, we have our lovely guest co-host. This is Benny the blind cat. He's not blind, he's half blind. But we're going to be talking about, Benny, do you think, are the buyers part of the problem? I think he thinks they are. So let's talk about it.
So let's just we really can't talk about the high end buyers.
Yeah.
The high end buyers are going to buy the high end horses. They're going to be the ones spending the $5 million on a Curlin baby or $1 million on a Tappet baby. You know, they're going to buy the commercial straight off the track mares and mares that are in foal. They're going to be spending the big money on those. So, and rarely do you see them dip too low in what they buy.
Mm-hmm.
So they're kind of the upper echelon.
They're not the normies.
Yeah, they're who you hope you've bred a baby that's good enough for them to look at. But most likely, the average person hasn't bred a baby that they're going to be looking at. The average buyer does not value breed to race mares, foals, or yearlings. What do you think? I have my opinions on this.
I think they do, but it's not necessarily from
When I
the
say
fact that
value,
they're ready to race. I think it's more the fact that they view them as pin hooking opportunities, because if you have a horse that is bred to race, you're going to get them probably a little bit of a cheaper buy, and they're probably going to have great physicals. And especially if you're buying them as a yearling, those are the type of horses that you can wheel around to the 2-year-old in training sales and do pretty well with.
So you said it, cheaper buy.
Yeah.
So what I've noticed in the sales, these same babies that have sold for lower amounts come back to a horse of racing age,
Mm-hmm.
2-year-old in training sale, where they're training on the track. Then you see the value of them go up.
Yeah.
But that same baby that brings you $90,000 after you've got it in training may have only brought 10,000 as a weanling, and you
Well,
got.
I'm going to bring up a name from one of our studs that we actually saw this happen in real time. And this kind of gave us the idea that if we have a breeder race horse, might as well get that first win in and then turn around and sell them, or at least get a strong second and then sell. And that's a mare named Intermittent Fast, who is by Taproot. And she initially did not sell for much. If I remember right, even as a 2-year-old in training, she really didn't sell for that much. She went on, won at Horseshoe Indy, and if I remember right, didn't she get close to 100?
She got
Like 90?
90,000 at
Yeah.
September.
Horse, yeah.
Well,
Not the September, it was the Keeneland, or
July.
the July horse racing age.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, there comes a point when the buyers do value them,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't really, from a price standpoint, if you have a breed to race catalog page by a breed to race stallion as a weanling, yearling, the value, as in monetary value, I don't think is there.
And I think a lot of people may get confused when we say breed to race. And just to give like a little layover, at least I think I can explain it decently. Um, our best mare, in my opinion, can be looked at in both directions, depending on what farm's looking at her.
Right.
Because she made $500,000 on the racetrack, but she didn't win any stakes and she's not a stakes placed. Some people would see that, and the fact they would write her off specifically just because she's not stakes place. She finished fourth by a nose. She was almost there.
And that was graded.
It was the extra heat stakes, so it was a listed stakes.
I think she was fourth in the graded too.
So, it's a mare that did every dance. She won 12 times, but because it doesn't have the black type that looks a specific way on the page, your commercial buyer, depending on who they are, some people value it, some people love it. Some commercial buyers hate it.
Yeah, that it is you're hoping you get the right people, because there are commercial buyers who put a lot of stock in a mom that could run.
Yeah.
A race mare. Well, let's talk about a pretty important race mare.
Puka?
Leslie's Lady.
That too.
What, she was a $15,000 claimer?
No, and she won some stake or placed in some stakes in Indiana.
Yeah, which at the time
was not good.
And I think she was a 15 claimer in Indiana. Yeah. Which Indiana back then versus Indiana now are two 180-degree opposite markets. But you've got a mare like Leslie's Lady who ends up producing Beholder, Into Mischief, Mendelssohn as well. I know I'm missing somebody.
There's that Curlin half brother to Into Mischief. I can't remember what his name is.
The Curlin. Are you talking the one that just went through the sale?
Mm-mm.
Okay.
Nope.
So
This one stood in Florida, and then they just retired it.
So there, like I said, there are people who buyers that value that mare who could get it done.
And
Who
even if
in,
they do it as commercial, you'll even hear them describe the pedigree as a blue collar pedigree.
or hard knocking pedigree.
Yeah, yeah.
And if you can improve that hard knocking pedigree just a little bit, I mean, let's look at Izzy. She was fourth in those stakes.
Yeah.
If she can produce herself and that sire can just lift up a little bit, she's no longer fourth. That baby's no longer fourth in a stake. It's third, second, first in those same companies. And like I said,
Well, and even at the fraction of that, we've got our 2-year-old that's in training right now, is out of a mare who made over a
250.
$250,000. And we've always said if she has just a fraction of her mom's talent, because her mom was running before the slots affected purses as much as they did now. So it was hard to make a $250,000 as a mare back then. If she has a fraction of that horse's talent, and that's saying the stallion doesn't improve her whatsoever, you're sitting really pretty.
Right. And that Dare actually, what, she was on the board in 85% of her starts.
Yep.
So
Izzy's got an insane on the board rate.
right.
I mean, I think hers is pretty close to 75%, and that's
Right.
over 50 starts.
Did she have 50 or 52?
50. She hit right at 50.
So it was Newsbox that was a
Yeah.
little bit, or is it Cool Quartet? A little bit, one of them.
Probably Cool Quartet, to be honest. He's still running.
He finished third the other night.
Well,
So
hopefully he has a home soon.
it's been arranged when he
Good.
retires.
Good.
So yeah, there's definitely a time to make money with that, that baby that was bred as a racehorse versus a commercial horse, and that is definitely those sales for horse of racing age. Yes, you have to invest in getting them broke and getting them on the track, but they're already going and they're ready to run. So that's
What do you think?
I think y'all put it pretty perfectly. Honestly, I don't know if it's something that can be fixed immediately, but
no, but it's what if we can get the buyers' mindsets to value more, um, value studs with long-term success
Mm-hmm.
versus shiny. Hey, well, I mean, I'm going to do a good one. As soon as Mystic Dan won the Kentucky Derby, so many people wanted to breed the Golden Sense. Well, shoot, you've been able to breed the Golden Sense for years. He's the same horse. He could get you a solid racehorse. He could get you a big racehorse. But taking it, thinking, oh, Golden Sense through the Kentucky Derby winner. Well, by the time that baby's born, no offense,
People are going to forget.
nobody's going to remember it other than the ones that are breeding the Mystic Dan who is standing this year.
Yeah.
So, I think the mindset of the buyers, especially the small to mid-range buyers, they need to put a little more value as in dollar amount,
Yeah.
which this year, the 2025 sales, as we did in our sales episode, they have been.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you look what the average, what was it, from 100,000 to 500,000 in price was 640 some odd mares, and
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's strong. And the fact that the lower end horses, the number of 2,500 and below have dropped significantly. Regional sires, regionally bred mares, foals, yearlings do not sell for the equivalent price as a Kentucky bred. Now
I think we pretty much talked about this.
Yeah, let me state what I mean, because people are going to say, well, the regional mares aren't the quality of said horse. If you take a mare in foal to the same stallion and you have her foal a baby in Kentucky one year, breed back to that same stallion, have her foal that baby in a regional program the next year, more times than not, the regional baby is going to sell for less money.
Yeah.
Now, this is where I'm going to say I understand it, because the buyer is most likely going to be the person who races it. So where Florida, New York, Indiana, Iowa, probably Louisiana, where the benefit is to the breeder, where they get the breeders' awards, which are substantially better than the state of Kentucky's breeders' awards to their breeders, Kentucky invests in extremely high purses. Yeah. So the buyer is going to get the benefit of a Kentucky bred running for a $90,000 or $120,000 maiden special weight. But if that same race that the Kentucky bred runs for 120,000, a non-Kentucky bred runs for like 50, I think. I mean, it's substantially different. So I do understand why the buyers are doing that, but I don't think the prices at which they are willing to pay for a regionally bred horse, I think they're lower than what the value of them actually is, because they just think that's a regional horse.
Yeah.
I think to be able to, honestly, I think one of the linchpins of correcting the decline that we have right now is the regional markets. I think that is a big linchpin of correcting where we're going. So, first, second year full crop mostly sell for higher prices, even though stallions are not proven they can produce. That's never going to change.
Nope.
So
everybody's looking for their lightning in the bottle.
Yeah, so does it seem right? Probably not, but that's been that way forever. I mean, look at the people who wanted it the first, the babies out of by Secretariat for his first crop, or Seattle Slew, or whatever.
Flightline.
Or Flightline, yeah. This one I think is a big deal. Regional sales receive far less attention than they deserve. Most states, most regional programs have at least yearling sales, and the attention from out-of-state buyers is not, there's not a whole lot of attention there. And I think those out-of-state buyers can actually, it's hard for the regional sales to actually advertise for, to reach the normal salesperson. So I do think that from a standpoint of, is it going to help the buyer be able to get racehorses that are of quality to run in the regional markets and actually make the money? I think the regional sales need a lot more attention than what they're getting.
Yep. Yeah, I agree on that. And the nice thing is, It's cool to see. So the Saratoga sales happen in New York, and then shortly after they have the New York bred sale, and it's really cool to see the amount of coverage that gets. And then as well as OBS kind of has a corner on the market now, being one of the few 2-year-old in training sales. Of course, Basic Tipton has their own, but OBS has their own sales grounds that has been historically accepted widely. I think it's tough because you see those programs, rightfully so, get spotlighted the way that they do. And then it's just kind of like anything outside of, I'll throw California in there too. There's some decent California sales, but anything outside of OBS and Phasic Tipton, New York, and even Timonium, it
Yeah.
gets really tough.
Yeah. And as you can see with, it's basic tipped in New York.
Yeah.
I don't understand why the bigger sales companies don't partner with the regional sales,
There's just not enough money in it.
right? But there's also
The
not
buyers don't spend enough.
there's not enough expense, or it's what you spend versus what you make, you know, and it doesn't take much to um, I hate to say partner, but champion.
Yeah.
Champion these sales, whether you're helping them with advertising, allowing them to advertise in your sales grounds, or people.
I think it's important to note that though there's not really. Maybe it's on the Jockey Club because you have to remember, Basic Tipton's a private company. They are their own sales company, and they're unless they can make money on it. And I think Phasic Tipton's a good company, so this isn't like a shade towards them. But any company, if it doesn't make them money, they're not going to throw money at it. And I think maybe this was more on the Jockey Club or other organizations that are more like a governing body or regulatory body. How in the world so obviously the other sales are doing well, and a lot of it is tradition. You go to Keeneland to buy your top horse. You go if you want your New York bred, you go to the New York bred sale after the Saratoga sale, or you're going to find New York breds in the Saratoga sale. How do we get the organizations that kind of don't make money on it
I have an idea.
to give it?
I have an idea. You know how I like digital sales.
Yeah.
Digital sales cost minute amounts of money compared to
Yeah.
normal sales. The regional programs are going to put their live sale on,
Yeah.
no matter what. Why this, in my opinion, would be a good thing for Keeneland, for OBS, for Basic Tipton, if they already have online digital platforms to partner for a fee with the regional program, and just allow the regional program to use their digital platform as the live sale is going on.
Yeah.
So which animal is causing trouble?
Benny.
Uh,
He has been bullying Mello. Hang on. I'm throwing stuff at him, trying to get him to move. Sorry, B. Sorry.
so I think if I were to, that's one thing I would like to see. Let's
Yeah.
say, and let's just use Indiana. Indiana has a yearling sale. At some point, I would like to see it grow to a horse of all ages sale. But they're going to put
Here's
on
the thing.
it. Just partner with, say, Phasig. Phasig supplies the digital for a fee. You don't have to do it for free. But then it becomes a partnership between the regional live sale, the digital sale. Phasic Tipton has a little bit of clout. Keeneland has some clout, a lot of clout. OBS, they all have online platforms that allows the regional programs to reach more people.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the regional programs who have a sale, they do have a digital platform that they're doing on it, but it's not a thoroughbred sales digital platform where I can tell you every month I'm looking for Basic Tipton's digital sale.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, a lot of it is just a conversation. I think a lot of different breed orgs kind of get scared of these big sales companies, and they don't, I think there is a little bit of a complex of being a regional program. You do feel like the underdog, and sometimes you just don't feel like you deserve to have those conversations. And I think it's really important on the people who are putting those sales together to start that conversation with basic. All it takes is one. And the worst thing they could say is no. And if they say no, great, move on. But definitely it's just a conversation.
I'm in this small platform putting that on the table. Maybe
I'm
someone
saying that you need to write the email yourself.
we're not going into that. I'm saying from an industry perspective.
Yeah.
We could be reaching people in Iowa. We could be reaching people in Ohio, Louisiana, all these places. These are the things that I think would better full crops because breeders are going to breed less if they can't sell their babies because
Yeah.
you can't race all of them.
Yeah.
You've heard me say that.
Well, then if you'll say that, then I'm going to put this out there to everyone who is a part of a breed organization that has some sort of sale. The people at Phasic Tipton are not scary. All you have to do, send them an email. Say that you want to get your regional program engaged and you want a bigger spotlight on your program. That's all it takes. One email. That's all you have to do. And then you can just say you tried it, even if they don't respond.
Yeah, worst thing they can do is say no.
Dad's favorite quote that he stole from a movie. All it takes is 20 seconds of insane courage.
And great things will happen.
Yeah. So that is on. If you were listening to this, and you were part of a breed org, and you're trying to figure out how to grow your sales, that's the one thing I will tell you. I challenge you: go ahead and send the email to the Phasic Tipton. Keeneland, I think, is going to be tough, but Phasic Tipton, even English Digital, the former Wanamakers,
OBS.
that is another one. Huh?
OBS has a digital platform.
Yeah, I don't think OBS is going to help with other regional programs. I think you're going to have to lean more on the national sales companies.
Hurt to ask.
Oh, for sure.
Because
on that one, I think it's a little bit tougher, though.
If and what I'm saying here is every section of the market needs to partner together.
Yeah.
If it happens and partnerships are brought across, doesn't mean that everything has to be done or anything has to be done for free. But if the industry can, instead of being separate or enemies, they can partner from the dominant locations to the regional programs to everything. That's what it's going to take to get the full crop to stop declining.
Yeah.
And are the digital sales the future of low and mid-range markets? Absolutely.
Yeah.
We've seen the digital sales change dramatically.
They've impacted our breeding.
Yeah, I mean, at the very beginning of the digital sales, we looked at it as a good way to inexpensively get that diamond in the rough. And now it's, they're on par with, any other type of sale. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, they've grown exponentially and become, sales price equivalents to a live sale. But from a breeder standpoint, it's less expensive to be able to put them in a digital sale.
Yeah.
So.
Now, so obviously, we've discussed how we believe breeders may contribute to this as well as buyers contributing to this. So that leaves the question, how do small and middle sized operations succeed? So let's kind of dive into it.
We kind of talked about this with in earlier in the thing. I think the small to medium operations need to limit the what I call swing for the fences breeding, which is going for that big stud fee, first year buyer or first year stallion, even commercial proven stallion that maybe they got to pay out of proceeds or a full share or whatever, that they will still be on the hook if the baby doesn't sell for the entire stud fee. Um, it swing that swing for the fences with that big stud fee it can pay off in a huge way, but it can also bankrupt you and get you out of the business pretty quick
Yeah.
if that's something that you're doing, you know, as a big portion. So can you do it? Yes, but you need to be very sparing with, you know, swinging for the fence.
And I will say, I think a lot of what we're going to see on here is stuff that we've already talked about. So it's just kind of more of a reminder more than anything, just to keep in mind.
And diversify your breeding program. And when I say that, breed some to race, that's going to get you a decent sales number. It's not swinging for the fence, but you're helping your mare, helping her produce. Diversify. Don't just breed or foal out in Kentucky. Foal out in the regional programs as well.
Yeah, for sure.
I think the biggest key to any of them that we're going to bring up is diversifying your program. In everything, you'll hear people say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. By diversifying where you breed, where you foal, regional programs, breed, breed to race, first, second year stallions, commercial proven stallions. If you spread everything out, the overall chances of with all of your breeding, at least breaking even is a lot more. There's a lot bigger chance that you'll not lose your shirt because you've diversified.
Yeah, for sure. And we've talked about this with our own mares. It's just important to, I guess this is further in the conversation, not to, drive this into the ground
right.
more than what we're going to, because we've talked about this a lot. Just make sure you diversify who you send your mares to, especially your young mares. You got to set your mares up for a good foundation. And mixing proven and unproven definitely helps.
It's also really one thing to point out. Don't breed your mare to the same stallion every year, because you don't know whether it's going to work.
Yeah.
So I hate seeing it when you go to the sale and a mare that's in the sale has been bred to stallion A 4 times. And
yeah.
None of them made money. We talked about this, and it came highly recommended from one of the major breeding farms. Breed your young mares to both proven and unproven stallions. That way, she has a lot better chance of success.
Yep, for sure.
Take advantage of the.
We've already talked about taking advantage of regional markets with, diversifying, and I think this is really important. I think, and we've kind of struggled to not fall into this trap.
Right.
When you become fans of horses on the track, it can be hard to separate the fan brain and the breeder brain.
Right.
And, you really just got to assess your mare's conformation, temperament, what they were on the track. Were they sprinters? Were they distance horses, turf? It doesn't make sense. Like, if you got a turf mare, it doesn't make sense to send her to a dirt stallion. It's just make
we've got
sure
an
that you're making
because
decisions based.
we've got an advantage because there's two of us, and we talk about who they're going to go,
Yeah.
who they're not. Don't always agree. Ended up fighting it out half the time on who goes to what. And some we do agree on, and it's like, oh, that's a no brainer.
Yeah.
This is
And
another
then
big one. Don't be afraid to seek advice when picking your breeds.
I think
No,
it's really huge for you to find a mentor in the industry. And if you are a regional breeder or a smaller breeder and you don't know where to start, consult your TOBA, your
right?
state's Thoroughbred Owners and Breeders Association is going to be able to connect you with someone at least in your region that you're going to be able to learn from. And then I always recommend making sure you have multiples, making sure you get online and kind of schmooze around a little bit with some of the people in the industry because you never know what connections can come and you never know what information you can glean from the people you meet even online.
Yeah, ask questions of anybody that you know. You see people online, you see people at the racetrack, you see people at the sales. Don't be afraid to ask questions. I mean, we've had people come up to us at a sale just because of the social media standpoint.
Yep.
Um, one thing, we didn't have that luxury when we started.
Yep.
So I went on Amazon and bought every breeding, how to breed your mare, breeding theories book. And yes, you bought some for me too.
Now, I'm going to just make a note here. Now, you can find these books on resellers online, even some small mom and pop shops online if you just search the book. If you do want to support something other than the big box retailer, a lot of these books are online and can I know specifically if you're in Kentucky, you can find them in the local bookstores. For a lot of you who aren't in Kentucky, I doubt you're going to find thoroughbred breeding books in the bookstore, but if you do, take a picture, tag me, because then I gotta go visit the bookstore.
Right. But I mean, I did a lot of that. I've read basically every breeding theory book all the way back to Tessio.
Yeah.
And they're the old knowledge is very good knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't tainted by commercial sales, and they were breeding for prestige.
Yeah.
This is the biggest one that I can't pound in people's heads enough. Nick ratings are a tiebreaker between two equal matings that you can't decide between. They are not what you base your breeding program on. And when I say Nick ratings, I'm not going to mention any companies where you can get them, but there are a few. A computer can't print out that you're going to have a good baby. And a lot of people are like, I'm not breeding to a stallion unless I get an A plus rating or a rating or whatever. The big one we can tell you is Go Sapper was an F when he was born.
Yeah.
Nick ratings only take into account sire line to sire line. And a lot of times when you do the Nick rating, it will come back that it's the cross is actually the sire's great grandsire cross to your mare's great grandsire.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you're only talking about 9% of the DNA that passes
Yeah.
that far down. So I know there is a big trend, especially in regional markets and probably even in the big markets of, hey, I'm just going to put my mare's name in, stallion's name in for a Nick rating, and whichever one's best I'm going to get. It does not take into account the stallion's female side or your mare's female side. So this is where it comes back to don't be afraid to ask,
Yep.
because there's a lot of people have just went to, oh, this is easy, I'm just going to put it in and whoever gets the best Nick wins.
Yeah.
And that's a really good way to cause your small to medium operation to fail by trusting a random computer to tell you who to breed your mares to.
Mm-hmm.
So let's move on to, we've talked a lot regional programs. How can the regional program help the industry? I think there's a lot of things that, because when we talked about, stallion farms, there's only so much real estate where how many stallions each individual farm can have. So there's always new stallions coming in. That means other stallions have to leave. First rule of thumb, don't just send your bottom mares to the regional program. Send some quality mares to them too. There's reasons, there's great benefits that you can get, and you don't just want to send your worst just because you don't think they're of quality to breed to one of the stallions in Kentucky.
Yeah. And we kind of talked about this. The cool thing about regional programs is they do give the breeder additional opportunities to make money after the sale's been completed. And this, honestly, it goes to both broodmares and stallion owners. Something that not a lot of people know is that in Kentucky there is no stallion awards.
Right.
They make their money off of their stud fee, and that's it. So for a regional program, whether it's you're sending mares or you're even looking to stand a stallion, they give you more opportunities, and it's more opportunities with, I don't want to say, it's less horses to compete against, which
So
is really important.
when I'll kind of explain the ways of making additional money, and we're talking about breeders awards, I can talk about the one state that I know the most about. If you have a baby born in the state of Indiana and it is registered with the state, meets all the criteria, if your baby wins racing in the state of Indiana, you will get sent to you from the program a 20% of the total purse bonus within 4 to 6 weeks of that race going off. So when we talk about how, yeah, you may take a little less money when you're going to sell your baby because it's not a Kentucky bred, well, that Kentucky bred's not going to be able to earn you as it wins that money coming back through breeders awards. So even though you're selling the foal, that foal can continually, for the life of his racing career, cause you to have earnings other than just the sale, which can make or break. Having them and not having them can make or break a medium to small size breeders program.
Yeah.
Yep.
A lot of regional sires are proven stallions that did not meet the demand of the required stud fee to remain in Lexington. In some regional markets, the foals of the state stallions have additional conditions they can run in. So once again, I'll just use Indiana as a reference. We have a Indiana sired restricted category, which the only horses that can run in those races are foals sired by stallions that stand in the state. And then there's also the Indiana bred program, which a sired horse can run in the bred program, but also mares that fold in the state to any other stallion, whether it be another regional program or the state of Kentucky's, Lexington horses or whatever.
Yeah.
So that gives you what Nick was talking about, the additional opportunities, restricted opportunities. So you're not running, it's not as difficult of company because you're running restricted. And like we said, a lot of the stallions that stand in the regional programs, they were in Kentucky.
Yeah. And that's what you're talking
Yeah.
about with the regional schools and running in restricted.
Yep. My suggestion to anybody that's looking at a regional program is to research that individual program, pick the best one for your program, the one with the best breeders benefits, the location with the best, the race purses are
Mm-hmm.
are more set up for what you want, and the
Mm-hmm.
number of restricted stakes races. There are some
Mm-hmm.
programs that have almost 30 restricted stakes races for their program, and then there are some that may have 12.
Yeah.
So that is definitely, you want to do your research on each program and not just say, hey, this is the closest one to me. That's where I want to go. But that being said, you do want it close enough to where it's easy to get your mare there to be able to foal out in that state, because if the baby doesn't foal out there, whether it's by the sire or not, it's not going to be eligible for the
Yeah.
program. And we talked about the sired and bred. Um,
Mm-hmm.
there are programs out there that the open, which means non-state bred, when you're talking, it's non-1, non-2, non-3. Does not matter whether you have won a maiden non-2 or non-3 in the state bred condition.
Mm-hmm.
They don't count, so you get to do that non-1, non-2, non-3 again in open company.
Yeah.
And I've called it mailbox money. That breeder's award, on babies that you sold 3 years ago that are still out there winning, they can make or break a breeding operation.
Yeah.
Not having them, because not having any return on investment after the sale is, this is a very critical way to keep, your business alive.
Yep.
Nick, I'm gonna hand this one off to you.
Okay.
Passion.
Passionate. Yeah, my thing. So, this is kind of a lot of people have the conversation about expanding our full crops, and it does make me a little nervous sometimes because we've seen what the industry is like for horses when there's not enough, aftercare efforts or home for these horses after they're done with the racing industry. It can be a little bit nerve wracking. So my personal opinion is that if we are going to try and expand our full crop, we also need to put just as much emphasis into fundraising more funds for the aftercare side of the industry. If you don't know, the Thoroughbred Aftercare Alliance is an accrediting body that I believe they just awarded. It was like $5.4 million to over 88 accredited organizations. And these organizations have to go through a rigorous financial, husbandry, vet practice. All of that is evaluated super heavily before this money is awarded. Now, currently, there are some ways to donate to aftercare directly. I know sales companies also offer an opportunity for breeders or sellers to add more money that they can donate back to the industry. Keeneland's really big on collecting those funds for aftercare. But I do think it's important to note that I think it is about time for there to be some, in my opinion, and Dad and I have talked about this, there should be a little bit of money taken out of every race ran, in my opinion, to go to aftercare, especially if we are looking.
I'm gonna talk about that, right
Hang
now.
on. Especially if we are looking at, expanding the full crop, on our own merits, the TAA raised $5.6 million, but I think we could double that very easily, and it wouldn't really impact Racing Connections all that much.
So I actually did the math on, I think everybody needs to sit down and have the conversation,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be tracks, breeders, sales companies, stallion farms, all of it. But there are roughly 35,000 races run in North America per year.
Mm-hmm.
My thought is, if you were to, and let's just say on average there's 6 horses starting in every one of those races. The people that make the money off the races are the owners, the trainers, and the jockeys.
Mm-hmm.
I would suggest, it would be one thing that I would like to talk about, is that for every starter in every race, $10 per horse
Mm-hmm.
from the owner, $10 from the trainer, $10 from the jockey, which is all taken out before anybody ever gets it in their hands. So it'd be taken out of the race purse by the tracks. And I think what I say, it raise about five
5 million.
$2 million
Yeah.
if we were to do those 3 things. It actually may be greater than that. But to do that, and to do that successfully, I think there needs to be an organization that is set up or currently set up that all of the tracks can deposit that money into the fund, and it's secure.
I think the TAA is a natural choice for that just because they already deal with so much money and the accreditation process and all that fun stuff. But I know some people are also going to push back on that because no one really likes their pocketbook being touched, even if it is $10. But I will say this, these horses did not ask to be here. We bred them. We bought them. We raced them. We ride them in races. We train them so we can all make money. It's the least we can do to give back $10.
Right. And
If you can't get back $10, I'm gonna be real, you shouldn't be in the game.
right. And it's one of those that there are plenty of other areas that there should be, conversations of,
Mm-hmm.
you know, of mares bred. Does the stallion need to kick in $10 per mare bred?
Yeah.
Or,
I don't know. I think
there may be
there's a lot of go ahead.
and there may be programs out there with I know we have to pay a certain amount of money per mare bred
Mm-hmm.
to the jockey club every year for each stallion. Whether they take a portion of that out for aftercare, I do not know. But I mean, it is, like I said, it's a conversation that all the players involved need to sit down and not just circle the wagons and say, "You're not touching my money." We're all responsible for creating these horses. We all need to be responsible for helping them out at the end.
Can I get on a soapbox for just a little bit?
Nicely.
I think the thing that gets me so frustrated when I see the conversations around aftercare, and I've had direct experiences with aftercare myself, and of course hearing stories and all that fun stuff. There's a lot of people who feel like they can talk a big game about what's going to save the industry or how they themselves are going to do it, but if you can't put your money where your mouth is in the aftercare space, you don't need to have an opinion. You need to do your work in the aftercare space, whether it's donating money, making sure that if your horses are going to Puerto Rico and you have the money to bring them back, bring them back. Don't make a rescue who's already, struggling to get by. Don't make them chase you down. This is the thing. I think so many people are willing to talk about aftercare and they view it as more like a virtue signaling thing, or at least that's how they put it off. And not enough of these big connections are going back and actually caring. We're seeing, in my opinion, from my experience, what I've seen, the small to mid-sized breeder is a whole lot more stressed out about what happens to their horses after they leave their program because they know if it comes out that their horse ends up in a bad situation, we're a small to mid-sized breeder. That directly impacts us. But there's a lot of breeders, and big racing owners who just pretend like they don't know what's going on. And I just think that, yes, the money from everyone is massive, but I also encourage, if you're going online saying that you can save the industry and you have a ton of money to your disposal, why don't you go give some of that money back to the horses that put you where you are?
I will state there are some owners out there who
There are some amazing big owners, but
I'm gonna,
there's also some
I'm
awful
gonna say
ones.
one specifically, and you probably know who I'm going to say. Jane
Godolphin?
Jane
Jane
Lyons.
Lyons and Godolphin. Both of those are just, they're insane.
Phenomenal. I
Yeah.
mean, if Jane finds out one of the horses she bred is in, a bad way or
Mhm.
needs, boom, it doesn't matter. She's
She's
there.
there.
And
Yeah.
the other thing I'm going to say is I picked the picture for a reason.
Because
Michael,
old friends. Yeah.
Michael Blowen is the poster person
Yeah.
for Aftercare. He started Old Friends before it was popular.
Yeah.
He, and the horse he's there with is Silver Charm, and his goal was always to get Silver Charm home.
Yeah.
And he did years and years and years before Silver Charm, got to come home, and he was in location after location just trying to help these retired stallions because it was the right thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's not the popular thing to do. It's not the best thing on your pocketbook, but it's
Nope.
the right thing to do. And if you do the right thing, it's kind of like that 20 seconds of insane courage, good things will happen. If you do the right thing and you treat the horse with respect and dignity and, care for him their entire life, good things will happen. And Seth Hancock, when he accepted his, I think it was the Hall of Fame speech
Mm-hmm.
that he did, that the horse is all that matters ever.
The horse is what got us here. We need to remember that the horse is what got us here.
Yeah. So,
Kind of to that brain, though, one of the organizations you have spotlight here is Mareworthy, and that brings an important conversation, I believe.
yep.
One of the things that I think it's been recently revealed more that's an issue, but I feel like it's been an issue for a long time, is really championing a second career for broodmares rather than just filtering them through this pipeline that suddenly they're 25 years old in full going through a sale. You know, we've seen it time and time again, and unfortunately, like, it is big breeders who are doing it, and it's so frustrating to see. But I'm really hopeful with, organizations like our MIMS and Mareworthy on top of the RRP, which is not on here. I specifically said not to have it on there because it's not a TAA org.
Not just stallions.
Huh?
Old Friends is not just stallions and racehorses. They
Old
have,
Friends is not just Stallions. But
yeah,
the reason why I bring this up is I think it's really important to remember that just because a mare ends up a broodmare for a few years doesn't mean that she's not going to be an amazing riding horse. One of my best riding horses was actually our first broodmare, and she was a show horse while she was a broodmare at the same time. The Retired Racehorse Project is really cool, though, because they work with the Jockey Club in the sense of, if a mare has been covered by a stallion within the last year, or if they've had a baby, then they're eligible for the broodmare division of the Retired Racehorse Project, which awards them. I mean, the broodmare division is in all disciplines. It's Western, it's trail, it's hunter jumper, dressage, barrel racing, anything you can think of, these mares can do. So if you were looking for your next off-track thoroughbred, I personally believe your retired broodmares are where it's at. Those mares, they're smart, they have amazing self-preservation, and yeah, they are athletic. So that's my soapbox. Make sure you check
a lot of
out
times they're calm.
Huh?
A lot of times they're calm. They've already had the time coming down off the
Yeah.
track. That first number of months off the track is a adjustment, a very large adjustment for a
And they're
race.
usually well traveled outside of that. I mean, they have to get live coverage, so they have to travel to a stallion farm if they don't live at the stallion farm. And
And
that's
they,
an underrated thing. A lot of people don't think about how many times these mares go to brand new environments and they just have to be okay with it. That does translate to a show career. Usually they don't care what's going on. They're just there to have fun.
they've been handled by sometimes hundreds of different people,
Yeah,
not just a particular one or two.
Mm-hmm.
for sure.
So this is definitely, if we want to grow the industry, this has to grow too. And I think every
Yeah.
participant, every organization, every state TOBA, all through the all through the industry, the jockey club, racetracks, all of them, everybody needs to sit down at the table and figure out how we're going to fund this.
Yeah.
There are some easy ways that's not going to hurt anybody financially
Yeah.
to do it. Because if a lot of people are participating, the more people that participate, the less impact individually that is happening. So this is, some of it's going to be a recap, just real quick, of what we said. But there are some things that I think are extremely important.
Yeah.
Um, the industry has changed, but the presentation of the industry is still the way it's always been.
Yeah.
So how do we correct the downward trend? Everybody always says the industry needs new owners, new breeders, new fans. How do we attract them? One of my things is I've watched the past year of Griffin Johnson and his embracing of the racing industry, not just Sandman. He's at the sales, he's picked up other horses, he's in partnerships. He's not just there for the red carpet. He is truly championing the sport on his social media channels, on TV.
Mm-hmm.
I think the industry needs to embrace and attract the social media influencers who will champion the sport, not just the
Yeah.
person with the most viewers, someone that will truly get involved in the sport, similar to what Griffin Johnson does. I think he is a huge positive impact on the sport, on the industry as a whole.
Yeah.
Yep.
The other thing I think we need is to attract the sports icons into the sport. Most of the sports icons have podcasts, social media pages, those kind of things. They're always the ones that get on TV when they show up to races, and they need to be one who truly is involved in the sport.
I think it's more important when we're thinking of sports icons. I mean, we do have some sports icons in this sport right now that we don't talk about as much. Obviously, Jason Worth is at the bottom. He had Dornick. That's a huge thing for him. And then he has another horse this year, and I cannot remember
Did you have God?
something Flying Mohawk. That was his name. Yep, Flying Mohawk. But we also have Walker Bueller. He had a part of Seismic Beauty this year. And then Alex Bregman. Both of those two are World Series, baseball players. The baseball players love horse racing,
Yeah,
apparently.
it's the biggest transition. It's from
Yeah,
baseball to
that's hilarious to me. But yeah, you got Walker Bueller and Alex Bregman who are in.
Podcast that he talks about. I don't watch it, but there are thousands of people that do, and
Yep.
his podcast talks about the racing side of it quite a bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Marshawn Lynch just bought in. I know he's doing stuff with Dave Portnoy, and of course that whole. I'm sure he's gonna have a horse with Bob Baffert.
Yeah.
Well, and what's unique to down here is like even in NIL in college, there's
Yeah.
horses being named after Kentucky football and basketball players or having some sort of connection to them. You saw a slide either on last week's episode or before his Life is Good. There's a player named Oscar Sheway that played here and had a commercial for it.
God is great. Life is good.
And then you had War Wheels with War Levis. So it's cool to see how they can dive into different aspects. And I think that's one of the aspects that they really haven't touched on. And I do think that maybe that's a way you could tie in because college is a whole new world with NIL. So there's plenty of marketing and opportunities to have these players be involved in it at a younger age. While it's nice to have these baseball players that have played for 15, 20 years, imagine getting a college kid at 19 that gets a little bit of interest in racing and he does something in the league, or even if
ends
he doesn't,
up another Griffin situation.
it gives another backtrack.
Key to this, it's not just attaching a name for NIL or that individual needs to champion the sport, needs to be out there. You know, you guys may have seen War of Will and commercials with Will Levitz, but the world didn't.
Yeah.
He did what he was paid for. He really didn't champion the sport.
Well, I think you're kind of not forgetting, but you're talking about championing the sport. I think you have one demographic on here that probably champions the sport more than anyone unintentionally because they have the products of the sport, and that is the off-track thoroughbred owners.
Right.
They already love thoroughbreds. And I think, and I'm involved in some stuff with engaging those that demographic because I think the RRP has shown. I mean, they get 12,000 horses that they've worked through. You know, that's 12,000 people that have fallen in love with a thoroughbred, and you're just one step away from falling in love with the industry that created it.
Right.
And so I think this is where there's already like this weird energy between the OTCB people and racing people, and it's always going to be weird. That's unfortunately, I'm going to give the thoroughbred industry a little hell on this. We are a very close-knit industry. A lot of our knowledge, we keep it to ourselves, and it's very much a good old boys club. And it's really hard for off-track thoroughbred people because if they ask you a question that may seem dumb to the normal thoroughbred industry person, they don't know if they're going to get their head bit off or if they're actually going to get a legitimate answer. So this is where I think as an industry, to correct part of this downward trend, we need to treat the OTTB people a bit better. And I do think in turn, they will treat us a bit better. But right now, there's just this huge disconnect between the OTTB, and we've talked about it. The OTTB people have completely different mindsets, and so do the thoroughbred industry, and it's just oil and water.
So you're in the marketing industry.
Yeah.
My numbers may be a little bit off, but when you do a marketing campaign, you have done really well if 10% of the engagement becomes customers. Is that a correct statement, or is it even lower?
We'll go for 10.
Yeah.
We'll do 10.
So let's think of the numbers of hunter jumper thoroughbred enthusiasts that if 10% of those wanted to get into the industry, that would be a huge boost.
Well, this is why I think it would be really cool, and this isn't something that's going to happen anytime soon, but I do think it'd be awesome that when you go to like the RRP or something like that and you see that you have one of your Stallions kiddos is in the entry box, do something for the person who is showing your horse's kid.
Right.
All it takes is one small act of kindness, and you'll never believe what walls get torn down just because you were nice to someone. You actually cared about the horse. I think a lot of OTTB people have this concept that yes, because we are breeding sales horses and race horses, and these are horses that make money, that these horses are just products and we don't care about them after they're done. So I think it's really essential for us to curate those relationships.
So I'm going to throw out a challenge because it's no good if we don't put our money where our mouth is, since we have stallions and mares. And it'll be a challenge to every other stallion owner, every other stud farm out there. We will commit to doing exactly what you said. Somehow give something, whether it be swag or whatever, to people who are in RRP and they are showing products of our stallion, whether they were products before we owned the stallion, after we owned the stallion, products of our mares before we owned them, or after. You know, we'll do that, and we challenge every other stallion farm, broodmare farm out there to do the exact same thing. Because I know when you were young, if some stallion farm had come up and given you swag from the sire of one of your horses, you would have just been in la la land and probably not taken it off for a very long time.
Well, and I was able to be a part of a situation that this kind of happened with. There was a horse that I was like very, very, very loosely involved, but I was part of putting together a care package for said horse. And you should have seen the way the trainer and the owner's face lit up. And I will say, people, it's great to pay for entry fees. That's awesome. Great on you. We love making people's financial situation a little bit better. But I do encourage to think about putting together an actual care package for the horse, or something that is specific to the horse that they can keep, that they can hold on to, because it's something that they're going to have to look at multiple times. And it's just one little reminder that you care for the horse.
I can tell you, you know, pretty much every stallion farm has hats. They probably have jackets. They probably have sweatshirts with their stallion's names on it, and at least with the farm's name on it. Those things right there are probably going to make a rider's owner's day more than I'll cover your $30 entry fee or your $100 entry fee.
For sure.
Because that same person is going to get on TikTok, get on Instagram, get on whatever, and say, "Oh, look what I got," and they're going to wear it, and they're going to talk about it, and you're going to make that lasting impression on that individual.
Yeah. For sure.
I agree.
This is a hard one for the industry because the industry is still printing stallion catalogs, and now there are portions of the industry that are championing this. I think the industry needs to move into the current trends, the new generation of reaching the market. Yes, there are breeders, owners that watch certain TV programs, certain TV stations. Probably the majority of the people that watch those TV stations are bettors. Bettors typically aren't breeders. They typically are just bettors. So thousands and thousands of dollars for commercials that are primarily reaching bettors, I think is not a productive way. But video platforms on social media currently in almost every industry is driving customer attraction.
All right, now I'm going to pause you for a second, because I do work in marketing in this industry, and I work with a lot. Obviously, I work for who I do, but I'm close with a lot of the major drivers for other organizations. I think you'd be surprised with how many actually are pushing it. The issue is right now we are facing kind of a hyper regulated era of marketing, in the sense of Google is penalizing you for anything they could even perceive a little bit as betting. And this includes having their bots crawl sites and identifying things as promoting gambling that have nothing to do with promoting gambling, to the point where they are even hitting horse catalog or like Dover Saddlery type organizations just because they're getting scrolled wrong. And the same goes for YouTube and Instagram. Unfortunately, racing is in this tough spot because it is wagered. We get taken down so much quicker than any other, or well, I would say any other. I mean, I'm sure there's some out there that are a little bit more scandalous than we are. So I think there's a lot more going on than people realize. But I think people also don't realize the heavy regulation that goes behind an industry like us being able to market.
So I understand that. That's probably not the direction this statement was going. I'm probably going to back up what I really meant by this statement. With that statement, because they already have the platforms, they're already reaching your target market.
But at the same time, they're under the same structures that we are. There's so many regulations around anything involving any sport that is wagered on that and as a creator, I've seen this. I've had videos taken down just for mentioning horse racing. And then you also have to deal with a social license that goes with that. I think it's I think that's a start for sure. I just think you have to get
I'm not saying you go away from the old style.
I'm not saygoing that either. But I'm saying you have to be a bit more realistic that it's not most creators you're going to have to incentivize them pretty heavily to risk their account status and to deal with their audience.
That is true. But is it going to create new owners, new breeders, new fans?
Yeah. But I think this is where we also need to rely on other ways of engagement as well.
You know, typically when you see, let's go new Stallions, where videos are taken, it's a thoroughbred industry news outlet that is going there with cameras. But let's say that video that goes out on Facebook versus an influencer or podcaster or whatever that is truly part of the sport and championing it, the number of views from that person going and getting the Stallion tours versus the professional video is way more.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on the platform. And this is kind of where I think I'm thankful I've had the experience I have, because if it was that easy, we'd all be doing it.
Oh, I'm not saying it's easy.
But it actually, like, in theory, like, it is. But what I'm saying is, it's great to engage these things. But you have to remember that algorithms change, for one. We've seen this with TikTok. Algorithms change, for one. And two, you gotta really, because there's no influencer who is going to do this out of the goodness of their heart. Everyone is getting paid.
I am not saying that it's free.
I'm not saying that. But I'll finish my thought. What I'm saying is, when we spend so much money on these influencers, the cost of acquisition oftentimes doesn't make sense, because you are paying for their massive platform. And if you are paying, I'm going to just give, let's say you $20,000 for a month of a paid partnership. Okay? Let's just say $20,000. Views aren't enough to justify $20,000. And I think that's where we really got to figure out, we got to get together as a community and figure out.
So do you think that because it's such a niche market that industry creators and podcasters for the industry are in that price route.
It really depends on who the creator is, because part of the issue, we have a lot of really awesome creators coming up, and I think that's the exciting part about being in the horse industry right now, is there's a lot of organic people in the industry who are starting to take off. The thing is, you have to have someone who can cross over from the horse industry to normal people
Right.
and be relatable. And I do think this is where we really need to focus on our homegrown influencers, because there are several who can do it. And I think it's nice to have a Griffin Johnson for sure. Like, but the reality is, Griffin Johnson,
Right.
even if you can afford it, sometimes it just doesn't make sense.
But I agree with you on both counts. That's why I said industry creators and podcasters. So what you're saying is the up and comers in the industry that are crossing over, I think that the industry needs to embrace them and actually help them grow
Mm-hmm.
their platform by, you know what it would be like if one of the very classic traditional stallion farms got a hold of a couple creators and said, hey, we are going to spend the day or the weekend with you at the farm. And we're going to
Mm-hmm.
show you everything. You're going to meet everybody, instead of that creator showing up, trying to get a stallion tour, creating all of their content, you know, because they want to.
Yeah.
It seems to me that the industry is getting the benefit of
Mm-hmm.
the independent creators and podcasters, which is great. I don't think they have to pay for it, but I think they need to embrace them. I mean, even the betting podcasts out there. I've seen a couple this is brought to you by X number of farm,
Yep.
but that's all they get
Yeah.
is that statement. I think they need to engage with people who will give them more than just brought to you by. Do more of
Well,
a,
think about it. I mean,
and there
in
are
my
creators
opinion,
out there
every
that
single every single open house should have an influencer at it. Every single breeder party should have an influencer at it.
every sale.
Should have influencers.
And I think it goes down to the racetracks as well. Need to
Mm-hmm.
bring those influencers in.
Yep.
And, how much does it really cost to give the influencer a place to stay if they're coming in?
Yeah.
Most of the farms down there have,
Airbnbs on property.
yeah, you know, but if you took the group of, which is a pretty large group in a niche market of creators that create for this market, and you actually engaged with them, and
Yeah.
you in the industry reached out to engage with them,
Yeah.
the scope of people that you reach is it's well worth it.
For sure.
I think Spendthrift is doing it pretty good. I gotta hand it to them. Their TikTok not always prim and proper. It's fun. It's exciting. Catchy marketing on social media sells product. It or at least it captures attention. It's not your typical and so and so won by 5 in this graded stakes, and then won by this graded stakes. You know, have some fun. Don't be so stinking blue blood,
Yeah.
because you know certain generations are not going to be around forever,
Yeah.
and the younger generation who is going to be looking for what catches their eye, what engages them, that's who you need. And let's say that generation doesn't have the money to be
Yeah.
able to be engaged. They have a dad or a grandpa
That could help.
that could be engaged.
Yeah, for sure.
What was it? Torpedo Anna was named by the grandpa because his granddaughter just loved that horse or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah. Oh, this is one. I think I missed it. Know your market and how to attract them. I think that's probably a general marketing rule
For sure.
to begin with. These are non-advertising type situations. Industry needs to embrace and champion the regional market, not just each individual regional market having to stand on their own and try to attract. I think we're too siloed. I think the industry is the industry, and we should be championing all parts of the industry. So, we know from a standpoint of, there's only so many stallions that can stand in Kentucky. Why are we still allowing they moved from Kentucky, they were a failure? That can be changed. That perception can be changed. And I think the regional people aren't going to be the ones to change it.
Exactly.
The establishment is going to have to work. And, if a stallion farm or a syndicate or an owner moves their stallion into a regional program, I think they still need to be engaged with that regional program to help promote it.
I agree.
This one's interesting, and I haven't talked to you about this, but this is the thought. The industry needs to incentivize breed to race and small breeders. So
they already do.
Yeah, but
regional programs already do.
No, I'm not saying regional. I'm saying the Lexington.
Well, we're going to disagree on this 1,000%.
So let me throw this out. You've got new stallions, right? And you've got your proven and your breed to race. I don't know that they actually did it, but I know there was conversations with Claiborne that they would have a breed to sell stud fee and a breed to race stud fee. Where if you kept a horse to race, this is going to be the stud fee that's due. If you send it through an auction, it's the other stud fee. I think that's a good idea. But this is another possible idea just for, every farm knows the little guy that's coming and he may breed 2, 3, 4 horses, maybe 5 horses a year. Or 10 or whatever number you want to put on it. What if you, for every stallion, had a handful of discounted fees to cater to small breeders, first-time breeders, those kind of things?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I just don't think that it should just be the responsibility of Kentucky. I think it should be across the board.
Oh, and the regional programs are flat out trying to do everything you can too. There is a farm that is incentivizing.
Yeah, and that's Taylor Made. They just announced that they're doing a regional. Basically, they're focusing on the regional programs by offering, I believe it's 4 stallions at a discounted rate. So
actually,
it's a non-guaranteed.
Once the baby is foaled out in a regional market, it is registered with that regional market and the jockey club. They transfer the contract to a no guaranteed season at 0 cost. So if you breed those 4 stallions, you foal them, register them in a regional program on an approved mare, they will forego the stud fee on that.
Yeah.
Then the industry needs to ask the question, are we seeing shrinking full crops because we price owners and breeders out of the market?
I think that's part of it.
Yeah. Um, we lost a lot of full crop numbers because
Mm-hmm.
we couldn't afford to be in the business anymore.
Yeah.
So, as an industry, we need to address that question. Are we so focused on profits that we're actually hurting our future to gain something right now
Yeah.
and just pricing people out of the market? It's that don't what I used to tell you girls when you were young. Um, don't don't ruin uh, uh, don't ruin a fun time 5 years from now for a fun time now.
Yeah.
Don't ruin your ability to exist in this market
Mm-hmm.
as an industry for trying to make as much possible money as you can make right now. I think
Yeah.
that becomes a problem.
And that's it for our special episode about thoroughbreds declassified in the breeding shed, discussing all things relevant topics in the thoroughbred industry, specifically about full crops and how we can work with that. So I hope you guys got so much information from that. I know my head is swimming. I'm sure his head is swimming. He's probably in the deep end by now.
Right.
So, but yeah, that was fun. That was definitely a lot to learn, and I wish we had something like that when we were starting out. I feel like this episode really can help people.
And if you're
Right.
watching, like, subscribe, everything in between. I feel really well educated, or I might not know nothing after that. We have dove in really heavy on these
I'll
topics,
give
but
him
it
a
was cool
test
to
later.
learn everything throughout. I really enjoyed this week's episode.
Yeah, definitely comment any questions, any disagreements with us, any ideas of what the industry can do to turn things back around to increase our full crop size. And if you do and you ask questions, one of our next episodes will address those questions here in the podcast.
For sure.
Thanks
All
everybody
right.
for joining.
Thank you guys, and we will catch you on the next one.